ॐ कूजन्तं राम रामेति मधुरं मधुराक्षरम् आरुह्य कविताशाखां वन्दे वाल्मीकिकोकिलम् यस्य ज्ञानप्रभवमतुलं रामचन्द्रस्य मोहं दूरीकृत्वा सकलजगदाम् अद्वयं घोषितं च तं योगीन्द्रं निगमनिलयं ब्रह्मणपुत्ररूपम् आनन्दाब्धिं गुरुवरमहं श्रीवसिष्ठं प्रपद्ये. Namaste. Today we are in the third day of this online Yoga Vasishta colloquium, which has been brought to you by Tadvanam Ashramam. Tadvanam Ashramam is a place for all the self-seeking, spiritually minded people on the foothills of Kalladikkode, which holds a lot of spiritual value in the history of Kerala. Tadvanam Ashramam, since its inception, has been trying to propagate the true Advaitic knowledge through various activities, and one of its major activity, which is a public activity as well, is the Mahashivarathri festival. This year, the Mahashivarathri festival is going to be celebrated on March 8th at Tadvanam Ashramam, and I request all of you to kindly be present and grace that occasion. And those who cannot physically participate, please participate in this online venture to support it. Your generous contributions are also requested for this great endeavor, which is meant to propagate the eternal values that are resonating in the minds of this great country, which is Bharat. So we started in our first episode by looking at how this whole text is composed and how this text has been taken forward as a conversation between Rama and Vasishta. Rama's dejection was discussed in the first episode, and as an answer to that, Sage Vishwamitra, in the second episode which we covered last time, Sage Vishwamitra explains to Rama the story of Shukadeva, who, after attaining all the knowledge, still having confusion, goes to Vyasa. Vyasa tells the same thing to him and he is not convinced. Then Vyasa instructs him to meet Janaka of Videha. Janaka tests him through various means, and passing all those, he reaches Janaka, and Janaka tells again the same philosophy which Shuka had already understood. But the words of Janaka brings about a new revelation to Shuka's knowledge, and he becomes free from any more doubt about the world being just an illusion and just a vivarta or transformation that mind assumes in the Brahman, which is unmoved, untainted, and which holds everything. This is how we started off, and Vasishta was asked to explain things to Rama. Vasishta, through his natural wisdom, enlightens Rama and starts telling a story to make it clear that this world is nothing but an illusion. He starts with the story of Leela. There lived a king called Padma, and Leela was his wife. Leela was very devout and she didn't want to be apart from her husband even for a while. She does a penance, and Ma Saraswati appears before him and gives her two boons. One, that the jiva of Padma will not leave that room, and the second, that she can see Saraswati when she decides. Times goes by and Leela becomes a widow. Padma dies. At this stage we stopped and we are continuing from there. By seeing her husband dead, Leela becomes grief-stricken, but she immediately remembers Goddess Saraswati. So Goddess Saraswati appears before her and instructs her to cover the body of the mortal remain of the king with flowers and keep it in the same room. And she says that the body will not wear apart. With this assurance, Leela does as instructed by Saraswati, and she asks Mother Saraswati a desire to see how the jiva of Padma is currently, in what state it is. So Saraswati gives her instructions of Nirvikalpa Samadhi, which she learns quickly because she was pious and she was very devout, Pativrata. So Leela leaves her body, takes her Ativahika body or the subtle body, and along with Saraswati she goes up into the other realms of the world. She crosses many realms of the world, one which is filled with darkness, one which is filled with stars, one which where Brahma, Vishnu and Shiva are hanging as fruits in a tree, one where the great sages, Sapta Rishis, are doing meditation. She crosses many realms of the existential world, and she and Saraswati in their subtle bodies enters into a palace. In that palace she finds her husband not in the way he was at the time when he was dead, but in a body which is far more glorious, far more young. He was probably 17-18 years and he was sitting in the throne, and there were kings around him, there were people praising him, the ministers were there, and he was doing the regular activities. Leela was surprised to see this, and Leela asks what or how did he end up as Padma? What was the previous life of Padma or Padma's jiva or life? And Saraswati tells her, Leela, that story. Somewhere in this world, at some corner inside some great mountain and its caves, in one corner there was a village. And in that village, there lived a great pious Brahmana whose name was Vasishta. And just like the Vasishta who is narrating the story to Sri Rama, that Vasishta also had a wife named Arundhati. They both were very pious, very much in love with each other. They worked together as couples and everybody had a lot of love and respect for them. It so happened that one fine day, Vasishta saw a king passing through their village who was going for hunting. The sight of the king actually brought thoughts in the mind of Vasishta, the Brahmana, that how magnificent the life of a king would be. And this thought never left him. He lived there for years, and one fine day he left the body. And seeing her husband dead, Arundhati also gave up her body in the same pyre that her husband was consumed. And this happened 8 days ago. Now that was a shocker for Leela, who was listening all this. Leela asked, how can it be possible that my husband died only 8 days ago, but he has been living here with me in this kingdom as Padma for years now? How is it possible? So Saraswati says, in this world, these are the ways in which it operates. You cannot find a reason. The person who dies immediately forgets. His mind assumes new thoughts, new body, and he creates new world in which he will live for years. This is how this world operates. World is nothing but an illusion in the bodha, in the consciousness. So Leela understood this, that how this operates, why her husbands and herself, who died 8 days ago in that remote village, can come and live for years in this kingdom as Padma and Leela. She understood that there is no reasoning for that. If everything is an illusion, anything can happen. You dream. In that dream, you assume various bodies. You wander through various situations. You undergo pain, pleasure, sorrow and happiness alike. You create your own bodies, you create your own world, you create your own time, you create your own rules. And when you wake up, you will see something else where you have been living for years. Isn't it? The same way, when one dream ends, the other begins, and the jiva who is tied up with the worldliness would not know. Because that Brahmana was fond of being a king, he was born as a king. Because he was very much fond of the wife, that same wife came as his spouse in this next janma or birth. His mind immediately created a new world, a new scene and new situations in which they lived for years. So there is no reasoning why it is like this. You might have seen some Christopher Nolan movies like this, isn't it? Say for example Interstellar, where at the same time the person exists at two realms. Now that is very childish as compared to the complexity that Yoga Vasishta has given us years ago, to only prove that this world is a maya, is a brahma, is a sankalpa, is an illusion, imagination of the mind. Now coming back to Leela, Leela was very much eager now to see the family of those Brahmanas, or the couple, Brahmana couple, who was herself and her husband in the previous birth. So they take a perceivable form and they appear in front of the whole community which was mourning the death of this pious couple. So they come there, they sit with them, they talk to them, and they try to calm them down who were grief stricken. When Saraswati touched and blessed all these kin and kith of those Brahmana couple, Vasishtha and Arundhati, their sorrow disappeared, and happily Leela and Saraswati disappeared. Now Leela started saying that yes, now I am remembering my old lives, previous lives. So many lives I have lived. I was a bee in a forest. Then I became an elephant wandering in some other forest. In another life, I was the seed inside a lotus. I lived happily as a mosquito. How many lives have I lived? I remember all of them. And Saraswati was also pleased. So Leela and Saraswati then returns back to the king whom they saw earlier, where Padma had, after his death, had assumed the body. So they crossed the borders of the Brahmanda and they traveled through unknown worlds, very unique, some very fearful, some very dreadly, some very kind and nice, and they traveled through all these worlds and reached the palace where the king was sitting as a 16-year-old king. And they saw that a neighboring country was attacking them. There were thunders in all the places created by the soldiers and the drums. The whole world seemed to come to that battleground. Fearful battle was happening. Both sides lost millions of soldiers, elephants, horses. They were dying like anything. The blood was flowing like a river. The whole kingdom was at the peril. And in front of them was this new form of Padma. And he was completely exhausted, and he was kind of on the verge of losing the battle. So that day the war got over as it became sunset, and everybody returned to their own camps. This king also returned to his palace and was taking a nap after discussing with the ministers. At that time, both Leela and Saraswati entered that palace, and they took a form which can be seen by the king. After taking the form, the king was surprised to see these two divine ladies, and he got up from the bed, bowed to both of them, and Saraswati blessed him. And Saraswati asked, "Who are you? What is your name?" There was minister also. So the minister started saying about the lineage in which he was born, and his name was Viduratha. He is 16 years right now, and his father gave away the kingdom to him when he was 10 and left for penance. From then on, he has been ruling this country very well. Now, there is an attack from a neighboring country, and all the stories associated with the attack was explained by the minister. So because Saraswati herself had blessed the king remembered his previous lives, and he was surprised, startled, and he said that I just left my body one day ago, the body of Padma, and here I am ruling this country for last 6-7 years. In this new country I was born 17 years ago. How is this possible? This is nothing but an illusion. Something might have gone wrong. How can I die a day ago and be here 17 years? And Saraswati explained to him about the way, the mystical way in which the world operates, where you cannot find a relationship between the cause and the effect. where you cannot always demand that the time works as you expect, where your mind is losing its previous memories and creating its own new world every time after its death. So the Raja understood this, and Saraswati says, you are going to lose the battle tomorrow and you will die. The Raja was not afraid anymore, because he understood that this is just a Maya, a Leela, an illusion in this whole world of Brahman. So the Raja calmly accepts that, but he puts forth one request to Saraswati, saying that my wife, I have a wife here, her name also is Leela, and the wife was summoned, and it was just a copy of the original Leela. So for the sake of understanding, we will call Leela 1 and Leela 2. So the Leela 2 was just like Leela 1, very devout, very calm, very composed, very pious, and almost similar in looking also. So Saraswati told, see, this is how the mind works. It collects impressions from the previous births and it creates new world just like that, how you want it. When you wanted a kingdom and a kingship, it created the kingdom and kingship. When you wanted a Leela like your Leela, it created another Leela. And they told that we will take care of your Leela, the Leela 2. The next day arose, the king went to the battlefield, fought vigorously, killed thousands of enemies. And everybody was surprised to see how fearlessly the king is fighting in the battlefield. Everybody was surprised, everybody was startled to see how he was on the verge of victory, but then the opposite king started the attack back, and he started seizing away one by one all the possessions that the king had on the battlefield. The opposite king killed his horses, cut his chariot, killed the charioteer, and finally this king Viduratha was also killed. The whole country mourned and everybody were really sad to see that such a king had to lie down his life at such a young age in the battlefield. So the jiva of King Viduratha came out of the body, and Leela and Saraswati were waiting there. They asked the Leela 2 as well to come with them in a subtle form, subtle body, because Viduratha has asked to take care of her. So Leela 2, Leela 1, Saraswati and Viduratha's life, the Padma, they all come out, they travel millions and millions of yojana or kilometers, so to say, and cross the borders of the Brahmanda. They travel through various worlds unknown, like how they traveled earlier, and finally they breaks out and enters that mandapa where King Padma's body was kept. So while they entered the mandapa, they realized one thing. King's body was preserved, it was unharmed. But when Leela won, the original Leela had taken this subtle form and left, her body was cremated by the ministers because they didn't know that she had taken this subtle form and went. They thought she was also dead and they cremated her body. So this was a dilemma again. So they blocked King's Jiva from entering the body and held it up in that mandapa for some time. At that time, Saraswati instructed Leela to assume a new form, new body. Because Leela had perfected in the Advaita, she was able to assume things. So if everything is imagination, she can imagine a new body and get that. So she did that, and Leela 1 got up, Leela 2 also got up, Saraswati was there, and the Jiva of Padma or Viduratha or Vasishta, whatever you call it, it entered the body of King Padma. Padma woke up from sleep, and he saw, when he woke up and asked, "Hey, is there somebody there?" Both Leelas came together and said, "Yes, sir." And Padma was amused to see two lookalikes, both Leelas, both his wives, one in the current life or the previous life and one in the new life. At that time, Saraswati comes and tells Padma all this story and how he had assumed the previous birth and the next birth and returned back into this original body of Padma. Hence, Padma understands this. At this stage, there is a very intriguing verse that we can ponder over. So Saraswati says to Padma, "Vastutastu na jatosi na mrtosi kadachana shuddha vijnana rupastvam shanda atmani tishtati." Vastutastu, vastutaha tu, in reality, na jatosi na mrtosi. You are not born, you are not dead. Kadachana, never. In reality, you are never born or dead. Shuddha vijnana rupastvam. You are the real knowledge. Your real nature is of knowledge, and you are not dead, neither born. Shanda atmani tishtati. You are in yourself. You are standing on yourself without any change. Shanda, peacefully. So the birth and death is created because of the mind. That is why when the mind subsides, when the mind goes away, mind is dead, those people are called Jivan Muktas. Those who are living, but those who are Muktas, or who are already out of this bondage of life and death. They do not live again, take birth again, because they know that this world is unreal. Within their mind, they have nothing else to create a new world. What creates a new world when a person is dead? It is the vasana. The vasana which we told earlier. The Shuddha Vasana or Ashubha Vasana, both of them are causes for the bondage, for the life and death. So the Vasana accumulates in the body, in the mind, and it creates the new world. As soon as one is dead, that mind assumes, that Jiva assumes a new mind, a new body, a new place, a new world. It goes on until the Vasana Kshaya happens, or the complete destruction of Vasana happens. Only the mind is the cause. That is why Rama initially told, right? Tasmin Chine Jagat Chinam. I hope you remember that. When the mind is dead, the world is gone. So there is no question of rebirth, because there is nothing else that you need in the world. You have understood your real nature. Na jatosi, na mrtosi. Bhagavad Gita in the 2nd chapter again tells the same thing. A person who has understood the self, the Atma never dies nor takes birth. All these Vedantic texts tell the same thing in different ways. Through this story of Leela, Vasishta has explained this very, very dramatically, in a way that people can understand, people can think about. Think of it. 8 days ago, Vasishta was dead and Padma was born, who lived for years. And Padma was dead a day ago and Viduratha was born years ago. How can you correlate this without assuming that the world is illusory? That is the crux of this story. That is what is being elaborated through the story, and that is what Saraswati tells Padma. Vastutastu na jatosi na mrutosi kadachana shuddha vijnana rupastvam shanda atmani tishtati. You are neither born, na jayate mriyate va kadachit, nayam bhutva bhavita va na bhuyaha. Ajo nitya shashvatoyam purano na hanyate hanyamane sharire. Bhagavad Gita. Na jayate mriyate va kadachit. The same words, the same idea is told by Bhagavan in a different way. You are neither born, na jayate mriyate va, na ayam bhutva bhavita va na bhuyaha. Ajo nitya shashvataha puranaha na hanyate hanyamane sharir. In this destroyable body, that which doesn't get destroyed, Tattvamasi, that is you. In this changing world, that which remains unchanged, that consciousness is you. The body changes day by day. New cells come, new changes happen, the hair grows white, but your consciousness remains intact. From the day you were born, you know, you have a feeling that I am. That is the consciousness. One which arises in your mind as I, that gives birth to the feeling of I-ness, which is ahankara, which gives birth to chitta or manas, which gives birth to the world. If you go back, if you control and retrieve all your senses into yourself, then you would see that your thoughts are giving rise to this world. In Bhagavad Gita again, it says like how a turtle or a tortoise retrieves all its organs to its shell. In the same way, a jnani retrieves all his senses to the self. Once those are retrieved, then you would realize that the world has been an illusion, something which is created by your mind, by your sankalpa. And then you would seek what lies beneath, what lies behind, which is your consciousness, that I am. So this whole story of Leela is a very wonderful story which over and over keeps us reminding about the mystical ways in which the world operates, for which there is no reasoning. And that is what Vasishta wanted to convey to Rama through this story, that don't go behind the secrets of the world, because the world itself is something which doesn't give you any secrets away. It keeps it with itself because it's illusory. You can't find a cause and effect relationship within what is happening in the world. So don't go behind it. Rather go and try to understand what lies beneath. What is permanent, what is not changing, what is ajaha nityaha shashvataha puranaha. One which is not born, one which is permanent, one which has been there from ages, and one which is going to remain forever. That is the main topic of Vedanta. I know some of these concepts are repeating itself. That's how the text has presented it. So I have no choice but to be truthful to the text and present the same over and over. I am not trying to purposefully avoid them, because that will be injustice to the original text. It is a conscious effort made by our rishis to ensure that they repeat the same concepts over and over, to ensure that people are getting it. And it is very useful in the way of Vedanta, in the path of Vedanta. So please don't get bored by the repetition of the same ideas in different ways, among different stories. It is how it is supposed to happen. So with this story, I'll end today's session, and we'll see tomorrow where Vasishta tells another interesting story. Again to say the illusory nature of the world and how we should understand the self. So till then, Namaste, Om Tat Sat.